Hello! In this episode in the series on composition techniques, we will look at the 11th chord in the Schillinger Diatonic harmony system. The S11 is an extended chord with 3 dissonant functions. These require careful voice leading in diatonic harmony. We will look at the chord structure and position, examine the techniques for preparation and resolution, study example chord progressions and an annotated score in an uptempo rock idiom. Let's first localize our subject within the Schillinger system of musical composition. The 11th chord is discussed in the special theory of harmony, that is, harmony with chords in thirds. In diatonic harmony, these are derived from 7-pitch scales. The chapter on the 11th chord deals with aspects such as the structure, position, preparations and resolutions and progressions. The diatonic 11th chord is notated as S11. It is a chord in thirds, as derived from the first expansion of a diatonic 7-pitch scale. This yields a set of 7 chordal functions: the root, the third, the fifth, etc. The highest function, here the 11th, determines the chord tension. The 3 dissonant functions require careful voice leading. It has a fixed 4-part structure, consisting of the chordal functions 1, the root, and the dissonant functions 7, 9 and 11. We use the S11 always in root position. The chord label is S11, which is short for a triad over a root a 7th below, the notation in classical music. Here, an F major triad over the root G. It also may be written as an extended chord in jazz notation. Here, as the G dominant 9 sus4 chord. In diatonic harmony, we never use a series of 11th chords. The single S11 must resolve into a lower tension chord, S5, S7 or S9. And here's the sound. Although the chord is used in root position, we may change the triad voicing in the upper parts, either in close or open position voicing. Let's consider the resolution aspect. As was the case in the other dissonant chords, such as the S7 and S9, all dissonant chordal functions resolve by descending stepwise motion. What we see here is the sequential resolution mechanism, starting with the highest chordal function 11, then the 9th, and finally the 7th. Note the root movement shown as root cycles at the bottom of the score. The root remains the same, that is R0, while going from S11 to S7. Then there is a positive root cycle R3 as we move towards the E minor triad in first inversion and with doubled third. Next, we look at the single resolution technique. Only the 11th resolves. The other dissonants are suspended and resolved later. This score shows the options, moving into either a lower tension 9th chord or a first inversion 7th chord. The latter yields a negative root cycle, the chord on the diatonic degree a third higher. Occasionally, we first see the resolution of a lower dissonant chordal function, here the 7th. It is followed by the late resolution of the higher function dissonance. A double resolution starts with the simultaneous resolution of the chordal functions 11 and 9, while moving into a 7th chord. The function 7 is suspended. The bass part may leap into the 5th of the second inversion 7th chord. Again, sometimes we may start resolving the pair over lower function dissonants 9 and 7 and postpone the stepwise descending resolution of the 11. The triple resolution yields parallel motion in the upper parts, with the S11 structure moving into either an inverted triad or 7th chord. An inverted triad voicing in the upper layer is best in this case. We find positive root cycles R3 and R5. The leap into the 7 of the 3rd inversion 7th chord is acceptable, since the correct S11 dissonance handling is more important. The leap in the bass the lesser evil. The triple resolution leads to a problem in case of the R7 positive root cycle option, the ascending step. In this case, moving from E11 to F sharp minor 9, we either land on an incomplete S9 with the 3rd missing and therefore unacceptable, or, as shown on the right, we obtain a correct chord structure, but now there is a descending leap in the upper parts. So, the R7 root movement should not be used. Summarizing the resolution techniques, we see the familiar stepwise descent of dissonant upper functions, preferably starting from the 11th. The single S11 will move into a lower tension chord S5, S7 or S9 through sequential or simultaneous dissonant function resolution. The resolution process involves strong chord progressions with positive root cycles. Next, we look at preparation of the 3 dissonant functions in the S11. As was the case with the 7th chord and S9, we may prepare the dissonance through suspensions, stepwise descending or ascending motion. What we did not see for the S7 and S9 and is new here is the combination of preparation mechanisms. I did investigate that option at the end of my video on the 9th chord, a case not discussed in the Schillinger books. Preparations may take place from inverted 7th chords. In such cases, leaps in the bass are acceptable, as we already saw for resolutions. Finally, we will begin to see more and more negative root cycles in the preparations. Preparation through suspension means one or more common tones between the S11 and the preceding chord. On the left is the preparation of E11 by triple suspension from a D major triad at root cycle R7. Equally possible is the swapping of adjacent functions that form a consonant, or the cyclic transformation of the triad here in counterclockwise direction. The suspension preparation from a B minor 7th chord is shown on the right. The triple stepwise descending motion from a C major triad is shown on the left. Then we see the first example of a combination preparation, here a double stepwise descent plus a leap. We will see more of such mixed approaches later. Note that there is a negative root cycle involved, as the root moves up a diatonic third from A flat to C. The 2 approaches from a 7 chord for the same root movements are shown on the right. ascending preparations from a triad in different inversion positions yields 3 solutions. The second is a combination of 2 steps and 1 leap. The example on the right doubles the third in the inverted A major triad. The ascending preparation from the 7th chord demonstrates the triple steps on the left, the acceptable bass leap from the 7th in the 3rd inversion A major 7th chord in the center, and the combination of 2 steps and the leap on the right. The leap down from the G sharp is okay, since the proper voice leading during the preparation of the dissonant functions in S11 is more important. We will see 5 slides with examples of combinations. We start with preparations from the G flat major triad S5 in root position, using combinations of suspensions and steps, or a step and a swap. Root cycles are positive R3 and R5. We are free to use an intermediate first inversion triad S6, doubling the 3 in the bass part. Note the many negative root cycles. The first example contains a swap and contrary opening motion between the outer parts. The 2 central preparations combine steps with suspensions. Combining suspensions and steps in the preparation from a 7th chord yields positive root cycles. Either there are 2 steps and 1 suspension, or the reverse. The preparation from the 2nd inversion involves another leap from the function 5 in the bass. Note the preparation from the S9, which Schillinger does not allow in the chapter on the 9th chord, but includes as an example in this chapter. It's a nice example of the occasional inconsistency or incompleteness of the Schillinger books. Here it must be considered the exception to the rule, with the chord root being invariant, while the 3rd steps up to the 11th, a kind of passing tone motion. We continue with combined preparations from inverted 7th chords over negative root cycles. On the left there is a step plus function swap. The middle example shows contrary steps, a first, as does the preparation on the right. And here's the final set of preparations, also from inverted G minor 7th chords. All 3 use root cycle R-7, the root descending to the next lower degree of the diatonic scale. Once again there are combinations of suspension and steps, and we see a leap in the bass in case of the 2nd inversion 7th chord. Summarizing the preparation techniques, we find the familiar preparations by suspensions or descending and ascending stepwise motion, in that preferred order. We studied all possible preparations from the triad S5 or the 7th chord and their inversions. We also encountered one special S9 to S11 preparation. In the case of an S11, we may use preparation that combine the above-mentioned approaches or mixed with leaps. We now encounter a dominance of negative root cycles. Let's move on to diatonic chord progressions with the 11th chord. The first example is in the key of C major. It has 3 S11 structures, all with triple stepwise resolution, but with different preparation mechanisms. We may use the slides from the previous sections as a lookup catalog. The 10 measures long example closes with a strong cadence, passing through a G dominant 9 chord before reaching the tonic triad C major. The example uses positive root cycles only, in order to achieve smooth voice leading. The next progression is slightly more complex. It involves a number of S9 and S11 chord structures that require proper dissonance treatment. Preparation uses different approaches, and the example shows a single, double and triple resolution. In the former cases, there is delayed resolution of the remaining dissonant chordal functions. The example closes with a plagal cadence from a first inversion F sharp minor triad into the tonic chord E major, involving a root cycle R-7. There are 2 more negative root cycles. The resulting voice leading has a weak spot in measure 8 to 9, while connecting the various inversions of the 7th chords. The third chord progression is in F minor and includes 5 11th chords. Again, we use various preparation and resolution techniques from our catalog. There is a cadential closing involving 3 dissonant chords S7 to S11 to S9, resolving into the tonic triad F minor. There is 1 negative root cycle in the center of the example, but the voice leading now is also determined by the altered 6th and 7th degree of the ascending melodic minor scale. The last example is an up-tempo rock piece that uses a progression with 11 chords. The key is D major, the form is ternary. The outer sections use a diatonic harmony, the middle section is based on symmetric harmony. We'll have a closer look at the chord progression on the left. The diatonic opening section is 8 measures long and contains 4 11th chords. There are various preparation and resolution mechanisms. In measure 2, all dissonant functions descend, while in measure 3 there is delayed resolution of the 7. The S7 to S9 chords in measure 5 are repeated, followed by a delayed resolution. The 2 11th chords in measure 8 are special, since they are not allowed in classical diatonic harmony writing. Also, the voice leading is unconventional, with stepwise ascending parts. This measure shows characteristics of either symmetric or hybrid 4-part harmony, the latter subject being discussed in a separate video. This opening section contains both positive and negative root cycles. The middle section uses symmetric harmony with roots separated by 3 semitones, here D, B and G sharp. In symmetric harmony, series of 11 chords are allowed. In the set of 3 S11 chords, there is an irregular ascending resolution of the dissonant 11, yielding a chromatically ascending middle part. The last of the 2 S9 chords has an irregular ascending resolution of the dissonant 9, again yielding chromatic voice leading in the lead and contrary motion between the outer parts. But, in general, this section is an audacious and rather free harmony setting. The closing section returns to diatonic harmony, now in the subdominant area with the key of G major. We see 4 S11 chords with mixed and ascending preparations. Once again, there is irregular voice leading with an ascending 11. The piece closes with a cadence, returning to the original tonic D major. The ascending 7th in G major is acceptable as a preparation of the 11th chord, the A dominant 9 sus4. All in all, this example piece combines textbook usage of dissonant extended chords with non-standard voice leading. I find this acceptable in the context of a pop, rock or jazz piece, but would refrain from this freedom when emulating a classical, quasi-romantic music setting. Here's the chord progression in sustained notes. The instrumentation in this uptempo example uses 2 lead guitars playing in parallel consonants. There's a rock rhythm section with bass and acoustic guitar, organ, drums and tambourine. In the middle section we hear high unisono strings. The closing section presents a background for a 5-piece horn section. Read along with the annotated condensed score. In this episode we discussed the 11th chord in a diatonic context. We saw its fixed structure and position, and various mechanisms for resolution and preparation of the 3 dissonant chordal functions. New for this chord type is the combination of approaches. I presented 3 example chord progressions and a short piece, an uptempo rock idiom. The lower tension dissonant chords S7 and S9 were discussed in separate videos on this channel, as is the case for the more advanced use in 4-part hybrid harmony. Symmetric harmony with extended chords is left for a future episode. We've reached the end of this episode. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share these videos. You may want to support my knowledge sharing efforts by making a donation on my website, where there also is more content. Thanks for watching.